question.
Lord Vader, our masters have been anxiously awaiting your arrival.
And where are they now?
In the central control room, sir.
I have a message from Darth Sidious.
Message? What message?
This! Darth Sidious has betrayed us.
Security! Get down there and stop the assassin!
Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and welcome back to the Revenge of the Sith commentary. Pretty much at the final stretch of the game at this point. Kind of obviously given the point we are in the movie at this point, but yeah, I mean, like, this game is relatively short, and while it is jam-packed with a fair bit of content for what you're getting, I mean, it is a beat-em-up game, and a movie tie-in at that, so kinda getting what you pay for, really. Although, that being said, you are given a fair amount of content, but whether or not the content is fun remains to be seen, because I will say that I do kinda like Mustafar as a level, but can be a bit long-winded, and it is host to by far the most annoying enemies in the game. At the very least for me, because coming back to playing this game, I had some of the biggest fucking trouble with these enemies, but you won't be seeing them quite yet. And in fact, I won't be seeing them for a fair while at this point. So yeah, I do apologize if I'm pretty much going to be rambling a little bit here and there, but it's lengthy, and I will say though, like, I mean, at the moments where you do get to take in the Mustafar sites with all the lava and everything, it does a fairly accurate job of, you know, painting the picture of what it was like in the movie, you know, getting a lot of the architecture and everything be relatively close. Again, it is quite good. And again, the problems kind of, like, show themselves up immediately with the stun batons that the Neimoidians have. Because again, they'll stun you, and then they'll pretty much just stun lock you into an attack where they'll continue to whittle away your health, so again, you're gonna have periods where, if you're not particularly adept at dealing with them, you're just gonna be running away, trying to use your force heal, and it's just not very fun, man. So yeah, settle in, grab some popcorn, and we'll just kind of relax really, because we got a lot of level to go. But yeah, I mean, after this we pretty much got one more level with Obi-Wan and Master Yoda, and beyond that point it's... well, it's gonna be smooth sailing, but then again we also have these fuckers. They are pretty much the brute enemies, but they take a fuckload to kill, and they're pretty good at stun locking you, and sapping away a fuckload of your health, so yeah. Force lightning is a godsend on these things, making sure that they get knocked down is also rather important, so yeah, try and knock them off the edges if you can, but otherwise, pray to the gods of the Force. I'm not even sure if Star Wars actually has gods. Well, I guess maybe like Force energy ghosts things? I don't know. It's... again, like, I mean, at this point in the movie, this is pretty much where Sidious sends Anakin off to Mustafar to basically just kill off all the characters that nobody liked from episode 1 and 2. So, I mean, again, if you didn't like the political stuff in the prequels, then you do get catharsis in Anakin killing, like, Viceroy Gunray, or the Techno-Union guy, or whoever else, so there's that, I suppose, but... again, it's just having to get to them that's a bit of the problem. I mean, you do get some beautiful vistas to look at, but apart from that, it's just a very sparse, Spartan level of gameplay, so, yeah, maxing out the content to its most extreme, really. I mean, I suppose, like, I mean, the enemies are tough, like, I mean, at least when you get to the Neimoidian guards, but a lot of what you're facing at this point is mainly just stuff you've seen before. Like, I mean, again, you still have the same gun turrets, you still have the same droidicas, you still have the same battle droids and all that. So again, like, I mean, I will say that the game in terms of pacing doesn't really wear out its welcome as much as you might think it would, but at least when you're having to try and commentate over it or analyze it, it might feel a little bit more samey when you're looking at it rather than when you're, you know, in the middle of playing it. Yeah, which is probably par for the course for a beat-em-up, where, again, it sort of goes into that logic of commentating over it might be a bit more of a strenuous task. but actually playing it for yourself will give you a little bit more of an engaging, like, mindless white noise gameplay kind of experience. And I don't mean that as disingenuously as you might think, because again, like, I mean, games like this are fun for that sort of thing. And again, there is a lot of detail on display, not just in terms of graphics, but in terms of stage hazards and other thing the game does to keep you engaged, to, you know, relatively hold your attention. It's just that, it has its gimmicks, it plays them out about as much as could be expected, but I don't know, I just feel like they maybe could have done a little bit more to spice things up. But then again, that also does come with a caveat of, you know, what this game is meant to be, and not being much more. Like, I mean, movie tie-in games are pretty much... Actually, no, they are non-existent nowadays. Like, I mean, at this point in time, like, I mean, what do we have? We have, like, fucking Guardians of the Galaxy or Avengers or some shit, and then just the... Like, I mean, they're based on, like, their comic book counterparts with a pseudo-movie tie-in-ish kind of thing. I mean, they're obviously around because of the popularity of the franchise, but they do their own thing. I guess maybe so they don't have to hire back, like, any of the, like, actors to perform the roles, because of, like, expenses or whatever. Actually, I suppose that'd be an interesting topic to talk about for the time that we have movie tie-in games and why they disappeared. I mean, obviously, since nowadays video games are a lot more expensive to produce, publishers are a bit more hesitant to sort of shit them out, and their losses can be quite heavy, as was the case with the Avengers game not too long ago. At least for Square Enix, before I guess they maybe reclaimed some glory with Guardians of the Galaxy, I think. I don't know, it's a little bit weird, but again, they pretty much ended up dying off when video games became a bit more expensive rather than something to include along with the toys and the McDonald's Happy Meals and the fucking box office receipts or whatever. Which is simultaneously for better or for worse, because, like, I mean, throughout a lot of my childhood, like, I mean, I do recall, like, playing a fair few movie tie-in games. You know, from the likes of, you know, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man games to the Fantastic Four to, like, I mean, even a bunch of other stuff, really. So, like, I mean, some were obviously pretty shoddy, but there are others that were actually quite fun. Like, I mean, I'll continue to tell the X-Men Origins Wolverine game as being one of my favorites. The Matrix Path of Neo goes without saying, considering, you know, how often I'm willing to praise that game. And, like, I mean, even other stuff, like, you know, the Simpsons Hit and Run or the Futurama video game was still pretty fun, so... You don't entirely strike out with that kind of thing, but... I don't know, it's, a lost art that maybe is for the best in some cases, but at the same time is, like, also... You kinda miss it in some aspects. Or at least I do. And of course, gotta wait for your force points to heal, but because you have pip damage, you gotta use the heal. I think another reason, like, I mean, why this level can be a little bit difficult is that, again, a lot of the health power-ups and the Bacta tanks are a little bit more sparse than usual, so again, you're a little bit more, well, I say that as we get, like, a big fucking dose right there, but, yeah, like, I mean, when you're going against the big fuckers, it's deadly, man. And, I mean, that's probably intentional because, yeah, this is one of the final levels in the game, so obviously they're not gonna put on the kid gloves anymore, but, I don't know, at the same time, it can make it a little bit difficult, because, I mean, I suppose the sign of a bad action game is when you're constantly having to resort to the run away, run away, run away, run away strategy when your health gets too low and you're not exactly engaging enemies in combat, rather than just, you know, playing a game of keep away until you can get your health back and then start pipping them again. Yeah, which, I mean, I suppose you could kind of take or leave, depending on whether or not the game encourages a defensive playstyle, like, you know, if you have a Devil May Cry thing where you have, like, the Royal Guard thing, or, you know, some of your blocking moves or counterattacks can be used effectively. Another example I would point out is actually Assassin's Creed, where, again, if you get the timing right, you can do some serious damage with the counterattacks. And I mean, I'd say that Revenge of the Sith does do that quite well, particularly when you get into saber locks with other characters, or, you know, if you use the grappling moves, but those moves are very few and far between, and again, those moves don't usually tend to be as effective against the regular grunts like you'd see with, you know, battle droids or, you know, grappling droids or whatever the sort. So, like, I mean, honestly, it's usually just more of an effective strategy to just sort of wail on the enemy, so I suppose another thing I could also say in regards to Episode 3 is that while its combat isn't very complex, it also doesn't really encourage you to experiment with anything, and I guess maybe that might have been intentional in the sense of, they wanted to make this game accessible to all players, because, you know, kids would probably also be interested in Star Wars and playing these games, you know, as they were at the time. I know, because I was one of them. So I guess maybe they didn't want to have such advanced, strategies or gameplay moves, but at the same time, I think it would have gave it a bit more depth, and I guess, like, especially when you consider, like, the different sort of lightsaber styles and forms and whatever, like, you know, how, to use an example, I think Anakin is, like, Form 5, which is a much more aggressive fighting style. You can maybe have him have, like, a lot more, like, Swordmaster style moves, whereas Obi-Wan, who I think is a Form 3 Sorcerer, I think, encourages a more defensive playstyle, so, like, I mean, Obi-Wan would have a lot more blocking attacks that could give you some serious room to use more counterattacks and play defensively, which would have been an interesting way of handling it, I think. But then again, I guess that's maybe for a Star Wars game in the future to maybe take advantage of. Then again, I really don't know what current combat engines would really do. I think, again, I have the game, but I haven't played it yet, but I think Fallen Order goes for a more Souls-like sort of combat system, so again, it probably doesn't really go for a lot more of the complexity that I think I'm looking for. I'd say something maybe more along the lines of Force Unleashed with a bit of Devil May Cry influence in terms of the style system. Would be something that I'd be interested in seeing in a Star Wars game, because, like, I mean, again, like, I mean, they do have the mythological depth of the different lightsaber styles from both Jedi and Sith, so I don't know, I think it'd be interesting to see how you could adapt those different fighting styles, and as well as having enemies, you know, respond to your playstyle. Because, like, I mean, lightsaber forms do also have different advantages and disadvantages depending on, what sort of lightsaber forms you go for. Like, I mean, for example, Qui-Gon has Form 4 Ataru, which is basically involving, like, a lot of flips and kicks and all that sort of shit, which is, again, good in wide open spaces where you have room to move, but is limited when you have enclosed spaces, which is why, apart from age, Qui-Gon kind of died to Darth Maul. And, I mean, speaking of which, actually, Count Dooku's refined lightsaber style, which I think is Form 2 Makashi, which, again, is good when it's on, like, one-on-one sword fighting, but is bad against, you know, deflecting gunfire. So, again, like, if you had like, a Star Wars character that was more of, like, a blaster user, like, thinking the Han Solo, Cartho Nasi mold, then again, like, maybe you could have them take on, Form 2 users. Actually, the more I think about it, the more I really want to see the Star Wars game come to fruition, and, yeah, it just kind of makes me sad that, we haven't gotten something like that. I mean, I don't know, I think it'd be quite interesting and cool and fun. And I'm feeling in another Devil May Cry mood right now. Stun lock. This is a stun lock. This is a stun lock. This fucking sucks. If it wasn't for Ray shields blocking the pathway, we can move on. I have no idea why I turned this into a musical, but, heck, it's pish. And I mean, really, all this is doing is just keeping Anakin away from the Separatists, which Palpatine was pretty much using. And, like, I mean, I do have to say, actually, like, I mean, something I've just sort of been thinking about, like, I mean, for Palpatine's plan to work, like, I mean, he obviously wanted the Republic to win from the beginning, which, again, is why the whole, you know, Sidious clone army plan pretty much went to fruition, but, like, I mean, I'm still sitting here thinking, actually, as, like, maybe a sort of what-if kind of thing, but what would have happened if the Separatists had ended up winning? Like, I mean, would Palpatine take control of them, or would his plans go tits up? Or, like, I mean, would he have just ended up using Anakin anyway if things went absolutely to hell in a handbasket? Because, I mean, I'm just trying to think here, like, I mean, he needed the Republic for, like, the core worlds and stability and all that, as well as the fact that, you know, he would have been able to amass the most power for his empire, you know, through the Republic, but again, it just kind of makes me wonder how history would have differed if the Separatists ended up winning. Especially given that, I think maybe it might be more expanded material in the Clone Wars itself that tried to go for the more, at least in some episodes, because, I mean, you have the obvious Separatists that are brouhaha evil, but expanded material does also try and paint them as more like people who disagree with the Republic's values and, like, want to go for a different system of government, which is, I think, what Count Dooku started out as before he went, like, full-on dark side evil. I don't know. Interesting facets of the Star Wars universe that don't really get brought to the surface. And something that the prequels, I don't think, really did a good job of explaining. At least on their own. The peripheral material, I think, did a better job with that, but the prequels themselves were just sort of, well, I guess simplify for the sake of movie audiences, but, could use a little bit more depth, which expanded material gave it, so who am I complaining, really? We also have snipers, which were introduced earlier and are a pain in the ass, but don't worry, the lava will take care of them, although they will get their comeuppance when Anakin joins them for a similar lava bath. And again, just throw more of the big yins at us and, queeshed. The lightning does also chain damage, which is pretty fun, but, yeah, the fact that they can chase you around and you run out of force powers just, forces you to change tactics. Force. So, anyway. I've got fuck all to talk about, so you know what, I'm gonna do that hacky YouTube thing of asking the viewers things, because that's what you do for engagement, like we're all in a fucking kindergarten classroom, and I'm asking the kids what they did in their fucking summer holidays. So, yeah, what are your Star Wars movies ranked from, favorite to least favorite? And if you don't answer, then I will be sad, and you don't want to see me cry, because if I cry, then I'll be sad. Or I might bring you joy. Who knows, really? But I mean, I am saying, though, that I am legitimately curious as to what people's, favourite movies are. And I would like to see some, detailed reasonings as well, because, again, it is quite fascinating to see what movies people enjoy and what they don't, so I can laugh at them. Well, I mean, I say that, but it's just nice to see the different reasonings as to why, at the very least when it's detailed, because, I mean, one of my pet peeves when it comes to people listing, like, their favourite stuff compared to their least favourite stuff, which again, I admit is kind of hypocritical since I couldn't really list why Empire Strikes Back was my favourite Star Wars movie beforehand, but, I don't know. If you're in a better headspace and you aren't trying to concentrate on 5 things at once while commentating, it's a lot easier, so, you should probably have a bit easier over time explaining why you like these movies more than, at least easier than I did when I was trying to do it before, because I have words sound good out of mouth talky thing. Actually, I was kind of talk about that because I heard Anakin's cheese-tastic laugh. Yeah, the novelization, actually, by Matthew Stover, I believe his name is, actually had a very different take on this scene, because, like, I mean, in the movie, Anakin is very much, you know, the Darth Vader cold and calculated kind of thing about it, but in the novelization, he is full-on ham-fistedly enjoying this. Like, I mean, the moment he goes off to butcher the Separatists, he's very much, like, punning it up with some cheesy jokes and all that sort of thing. Like, I mean, I think it was Viceroy Gunray, actually, before he was killed, he was like, "Lord Sidious promised us peace!" To which Anakin replied, "Your transmission was garbled. He promised you in pieces." Which is amazing. I kinda wish we got some of that in the game, to be perfectly honest, but, alas, 'twas not meant to be. But don't worry, we're nearing our glorious cutscene, where we slowly approach in that Darth Vader-y fashion. And I mean, I suppose if there... well, you know what, I'll save it for a little bit later, because again, I did have another thing to talk about in regards to the acting of the movie, which is so often criticized, but I'll bring it up shortly after this. Oh dear, they're on the run. Anyway, I also was saying earlier to talk about the acting in the movie with Hayden Christensen in particular. Yeah, one of the things about Episode 3 that actually does get me was how very, Vader-like he was able to make a lot of his mannerisms. Like, I don't know, like, I mean, it was probably down to the direction on George's part, but again, I really liked how he was able to capture... like, I mean, especially during the scene where he confronts the Separatists and tries to mow them down, like, he's very methodical, very careful and controlled. And again, like, I mean, props to Hayden Christensen for being able to bring that up, because, like, I mean, while I think in terms of reciting some of the dialogue, it might have been a bit off, but then again, who wasn't really when reciting some of George Lucas's, very wooden dialogue, but again, one thing a lot of the actors do nail is usually the scenes where, again, they get to act with a lot of their facial expressions and, you know, their mannerisms. I don't know, it's a very small detail, but again, it really does bring across the power of the scenes. Another example in particular was actually in the, like, the cross-cutting scene between Anakin and Padme in the Jedi Temple and the... I believe it was, Padme's apartment over on Coruscant. Like, I mean, it was a scene right before, I think, Windu and some of the Jedi Masters confronted, Sidious. And again, like, I mean, in tandem with John Williams' score, that was, again, some really powerful stuff, and one of my favorite scenes in Revenge of the Sith. It is glorious, dude. Now then, onwards to new adventure.
rocked it. We trapped.
And now everybody who hated episode 1 and 2 can get their catharsis. Yes, take that, political scenes, even though you had importance in the movie. Goodbye, Tooth Techno-Union guy. Your beats will never appear again.
Stop! I'm asking you for mercy!
Mercy?
Yes, you won't kill me. It's not allowed for a Jedi Knight.
There's much you fail to understand. I'll destroy your ship!
Yeah, and for whatever reason, like, I mean, the Trade Federation decided to stay behind to just kill Anakin. Like, I mean, given the fact that he mowed down half your forces, is responsible for destroying a lot of the Jedi at this point, do you really think you have a chance? And I mean, I don't think he has some sort of, like, bullshit Starkiller powers of, like, pulling down a Star Destroyer onto the ground, so I don't really think you had much to worry about. You could have just fucked off and gone away, and nobody would have been any the wiser. But, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe from their perspective, like, they would have thought that Anakin would have chased him down in his starfighter, so best to get rid of him now. But, yeah, anyway. This is also a boss battle that I pretty much did decide to cut down for time, because again, it's pretty much like a lot of the same attack patterns. He does that little laser thing, he'll try and sweep you down with like a burst shot kind of thing. And to be honest, like, I mean, in a similar battle to the Republic gunship, it's just a little bit pish, to be honest. Like, I mean, you've pretty much seen what happens here. They'll throw out some goons every which way in Sunday on the odd occasion, so, nah, it is what it is, and, I think it's about time we got to moving on, because, the end is in sight. And I kinda wanna get this game finished tonight, because, again, I have fallen behind in a lot of recording duties, because, again, work is very busy during the summertime, and, they're gonna make sure I've got plenty of content ready for it, so, yeah. Once again, all apologies for that, and especially the schedule slippage, but I'm only human, and, it's painful. So, catch you dudes and dudettes later, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.